Hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
We thought we'd do a posting today towards the end of our holiday here.
We're going home.
We're going home and
Not
we've
today.
had a beautiful time by the beach, and we've been watching lots of families out there through the window enjoying themselves with their children, parents, kids together, half-term week. It's been lovely to see lots of people just enjoying the weather, because we've had some pretty bad weather. So this brings us on to our point. This is a very serious one for us, and we feel very passionate about this because of what it's about. And really, it's probably better if I just get straight into it. It's from something that I read online, the Mail online, this news coverage. I understand from a brother who sent me a reply on Facebook that this actual incident took place 6 years ago, which actually made it even more poignant, really, because it's suddenly there's 6 years since the incident, and I'll come on to it now as we read through it. So please bear with me as I now read to you part of this news coverage that I've printed off. It's out there in the public domain, so the names in this are not secret. So here we go. Jehovah's Witness mother dies after refusing blood transfusion after giving birth to twins. A young mother died hours after giving birth to twins because her faith prohibited a life-saving blood transfusion. Emma Goff, 22, was able to hold her son and daughter after the natural delivery, but suffered a sudden hemorrhage and lost a great deal of blood. As a Jehovah's Witness, Mrs. Goff had signed a form before the birth insisting that she should not be given blood. Staff at the Royal Shrewsbury Hospital begged her husband Anthony, 24, who is also a Jehovah's Witness, and other relatives to allow the transfusion. But followers believe that blood transfusions are prohibited by the Bible, and the family would not sanction the treatment. Mrs. Goff, a shop worker for Dorley, Telford, Shropshire, died early on October the 25th. The twins are being cared for by their father, who yesterday led the mourners at his wife's funeral. Mr. Goff said, "We are coping the best we can. There will be an inquest and issues will arise from that." The couple married on the Caribbean island of Barbados in December 2005 in a ceremony attended by 30 members of their family and friends. At the time, Mrs. Goff was a secretary working for her husband's gas and fitting and plumbing business. Friends said that the Goffs were teenage sweethearts, and Emma had been ecstatic to learn that she was expecting twins. Their best man, Peter Welch, 24, said Mrs. Goff's death had devastated both sides of the family, all of them Jehovah's Witnesses. Mr. Welch of Sutton Hill, Telford, said, we can't believe she died after childbirth in this day and age with all the technology there is. What makes it even more sad is Emma had time to bond with her twins before the complications set in. Mrs. Goff's parents, Glenda and James Delaney, a long-distance lorry driver, were too upset to comment at their Telford home yesterday. Mr. Goff's father, Ian, who runs a car window tinting business, said, "We are awaiting a report from the coroner." An elderly neighbour criticised the family for sticking to their beliefs. She said, "How could she make that decision not to have a transfusion and leave those babies without a mother? It's terrible. I don't care what your beliefs are. To refuse treatment like that is awful." Another neighbour said a friend of the family told us she had suffered a hemorrhage after giving birth to the twins naturally and had refused a transfusion. They couldn't understand why she hadn't been given a caesarean. A member of the Kingdom Hall congregation of Madley in Telford said, "The basis of the faith is that we follow commands from the scriptures, and it is a scriptural command to abstain from blood. It is one of a number of things in the scriptures about things you can and cannot do. It is, of course, up to the individual to decide how strongly to follow these requirements. I accept the faith will receive criticism over this. Some of our beliefs do attract criticism." He denied that Mrs. Goff was being selfish by putting her own beliefs before the needs of her children, adding, "Children are always a priority. We respect life. We seek the best medical attention we can, but the requirement we have is that we do so without receiving blood. It is very sad, and there is a lot of support, for the family. There's a lot more to that article, but I'm going to stop there for a bit and we'll just talk about that for a minute.
That made us very cross.
Very cross.
Very angry, and more poignant being the fact that when we look out there on the beach and we see families walking along with their children, being the school holidays, there's lots of children around at the moment, and they're happily, they're screaming, they're chasing each other, they're building sandcastles, and this mother will never have that chance now to see her 2 children grow up building sandcastles, and when they trip put a little plaster on their grazed knee.
No.
She'll never do that. Why? Because of a decision that she made, and because it was put in front of her to either accept blood or not accept blood, and she chose not to accept blood. She chose not to survive, and she thinks, and I'm sure she did at the time, and this isn't to diss the family or to have a go at the family.
No.
We respect the family, but what we don't appreciate is the fact that she was made to make that decision in the first place. That decision was put there by imperfect men, telling all witnesses that blood transfusion is forbidden in the Bible. But this brother says here about how, where does it say about that children are a priority, and how
we respect life.
We respect life. But they also said here how they go along with the scriptures. That's it. One of the number of things in the scriptures about the things you can and cannot do, and that it's up to the individual to decide how strongly to follow these requirements. But where does it say in the Bible then that you can have fractions?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't say that,
no.
And it doesn't say that you can't have blood.
Well, he says down there in his quote there that we can get, but we would take any medical attention we can get, but the requirement we have is that we do so without receiving blood. You do receive blood, copious amounts of it,
yeah,
every single
every
day.
And you don't even
medical treatments are full of fractions. Hemoglobin is a high percentage content there alone. Look at the factor VIII and clotting factors for those suffering from haemophilia. There are so many different organ transplants. There is blood everywhere in all of these treatments. And so you are receiving blood all of the time. So this is the question for you. You won't receive blood and yet you'll die for it. And yet you'll have medical treatments with the blessing of the Watchtower Society saying you can have blood, smaller amounts of it. So where is this in Scripture? Where is it in the Bible that talks about you are now allowed fractions?
Where did it say in the first place you couldn't have any blood at all? But the society,
right.
And the reason the society will never ever tell you outrightly that, oh, by the way, you can have blood, we got that wrong, is because if they did, there'd be a mass exodus of people leaving the organisation. Why? Because everybody at some form of another, at some time or another, has been affected by the blood decision, the blood dogma, and whether to have a blood transfusion or not. Be it the mother, the father, the son, the brother, the wife, the children, the grandparents, the grandchildren, all people within the organisation have had somebody or know somebody who's been affected at one time in their life through this blood dogma. Myself, my grandfather, he never was a Jehovah's Witness. My grandmother was, and she brought up both girls, my mum and my auntie, as Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's where my side of the family are all now in Jehovah's Witnesses. My grandfather hated the organisation, and I understand why now. I wish he was alive today to be able to have a discussion with him, and I look forward to the day when I can have that discussion with him. But with regards to, he was a medical science, only alive through medical science. He had several blood transfusions through his life. And if he didn't, he would have died many years ago. Many years ago. So I've been affected by that. Mark, you've been affected by it because your dad.
My own father, when I was about 4 or 5, had a burst stomach ulcer, and he was bleeding internally. And it got extremely serious even before he got to the hospital. By the time he got to the hospital, the doctors, the surgeons had said that he desperately needed a blood transfusion immediately. Of course, Mum said no. And as a result of that, they said, well, we'll do what we can for him, but there's a likelihood he could die. And she was on her knees. I'll never forget it as a child. In a hospital corridor, my mum was on her knees squeezing me so tight I could hardly breathe. in this desperate state that she was in, knowing that her husband was dying, and that she was now the one saying, no, I'm not going to receive a blood transfusion. That is burnt into my memory as an early childhood memory of how dangerous this religion is, because you baptize yourself as a Jehovah's Witness. The chances are you can go through life okay, but then suddenly something can happen and you could be faced with this decision to say goodbye to yourself over what is, when you take it seriously, look at the actual blood dogma.
Or there are reasons for you not having blood.
Look into it in a more serious, do some research. There's plenty of research out there outlining the reasons why you should have a blood transfusion. And in fact, the Watchtower is actually saying to you that you can have all of these blood treatments with blood. So you're now making a decision that really isn't already there. It's already been made for you. It's been doing, it's a conscience issue. But when it comes down to a mother losing her twins, how do you think that would be viewed outside in the world? We've seen the neighbours.
And the twins now losing their mother for the rest of their life. If this was 6 years ago, these children are now 6.
Yeah.
So they are of an age now where they've lived 6 years on this earth with no mother. Their birth mother died when giving birth to them. Now, that's a traumatic thing for them to realise, that they, you know, when I gave birth to my daughter, the placenta didn't come away straight away, so I actually started to hemorrhage myself. Now, if I'd have been put in a position as a Jehovah's Witness at the time, do I have blood or not? My husband had left me, so my daughter now would not have the mother or the father around. And so, because I probably would have refused a blood transfusion, because not because necessarily that's what I would have wanted, but I know that I would have not had it because of the pressure from my mother and my auntie and all of the people that were around me at the time, because of the way that Jehovah would have viewed it. But I wouldn't be thinking about Jehovah. I'd have been thinking about the people around me, and a majority of people within the organisation, Jehovah doesn't come into their mind when they're making decisions like this. No. It's how the congregation view them, how the organisation is going to view them and their family if they take blood. I know of many witnesses who were, if they could have blood and have had medical treatment, and if they have it without anybody knowing, they do and have done.
Well, we've seen many emails to that particular ilk.
Yeah.
We've got something here that you can actually Google yourselves. I just printed off a paragraph under the terminology of brainwashing. And just listen to what this says. It's very quick. Mind control, also known as brainwashing, coercive persuasion, thought control or thought reform, refers to an indoctrination process which results in an impairment of autonomy, an inability to think independently, and a disruption of beliefs and affiliations. In this context, brainwashing refers to the involuntary re-education of basic beliefs and values. The term has been applied to any tactic, psychological or otherwise, which can be seen as subverting an individual's sense of control over their own thinking, behaviour, emotions, or decision making. That sums it up absolutely perfectly. It really does, and it gives us an idea that any mother in their right mind that didn't have that inside them, this stuff here that I've just described about coercion, would move mountains to make sure that they were there for those twins. You
think about that on the, like you say, if you haven't got that indoctrination in your mind, there would be no question. You would have it, because if it was put on the position of them, placed on a decision in front of you, do you want a blood transfusion, you would just go for it. Absolutely, yes. If it's got an opportunity to save my life, I'm going to take it. And everyone in your family would be backing you up, saying, yes, take it, we love you, we don't want to lose you. Now, this woman's family were the opposite. No, don't have it. Don't have the blood. We'd rather lose you like this than have you and have you have had a blood transfusion. Wow.
That's quite something.
Wow.
And so let's look at the scriptural side of this just for a second. There are many research issues out there, postings, blogs. We've done some ourselves, looking at what the Apostle Paul was talking about, the abstention of blood. But here's another one. Let's look a little bit deeper on this, on how Jesus would view it. How does Jesus view this lady dying, sacrificing herself? How would he view that if he was here now? Does he want that? Does he really want that? Really? Matthew chapter 9, if you read it in context, the whole of that chapter, where Jesus is out on his disciple-making work, he's out preaching and teaching and healing people. He's healing the mute, he's healing crippled people, he's healing a woman that had 12 years of a blood discharge. She touched him, he healed her.
By her faith she was healed.
A father is crying out to Jesus here, please, my daughter has died. His daughter has died. Jesus resurrects her straight away. All the way through chapter 9, it's talking about Jesus wanting us to be alive, to worship him. That's what he wants. And in how do I know that? If we look at verse 13 of chapter 9, Jesus says there, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. His words, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. So does he want to see a mother dying and leaving those twins? No. In fact, you could take it a step further. When Jesus died for all of us, he didn't expect us then to start dying through a blood dogma. If we're dying for our Christian faith, these are other issues, and there's some deep theological discussions that can be had from that. But he wants mercy. He wants people to live. He wants all of us to live and to be able to worship in peace and security like that. But he doesn't want us to sacrifice ourselves for something like this. He really doesn't. And that's what I get from Matthew 9, and so does Cora, and so do a lot of other people. But it makes us realize that out on the beach, these children playing with their mothers and their fathers, this is not to have a go at this family. They've been through enough. We love these people, we've never met them, and we hope if they're ever watching this was never to monopolise on what's happened to this tragedy within your family.
There's many families out there that have been put in a very, very similar, if not identical, situation to yourselves, and have taken the same decisions. In fact, there was a family recently, a young witness couple, I'm not sure if it's in this country, I can't remember now, but I just remember reading the article, and this young couple, it was their first baby, and their daughter had been born with, I think it was a rare blood disorder, almost like a leukemia. And she needed a blood transfusion in order to survive, and the parents, being Jehovah's Witnesses, were refusing point blank to let her have it. Now, they were prepared to let her die, but because the doctors felt strongly as they did that this child could survive, and the parents were sacrificing their daughter for no reason at all other than their beliefs that were based on Bible, but there is no basis for it in the Bible, took it to court, and the judge overruled and overturned the decision and took the decision away from the parents and decided to give that child the blood transfusion that she needed in order to survive and save her life. Now, the parents, rather than being horrified, were relieved at being in the position where they had the decision taken out of their hands, because they could go, well, it wasn't down to us. But this child is still in their care, and now going to be going to the meetings with them, and they're going to be dressing it in little pretty dresses, and eventually going to be giving her her own little Bible when she's older. But that child's alive, not because of them, but because of a decision of somebody in the world who took that decision from them to choose life for that child, as opposed to death. Because
life is precious. Life is all we've got, and we must fight tooth and nail to keep ourselves alive.
But the fact that the parents felt relieved tells me an awful lot. That no one in that organisation wants to die for the blood dogma. No. They don't want to sacrifice themselves on that. And the majority of the time, it's, as I said before, it's got more to do with how it looks to the congregation and the elders and everyone around them. It's got nothing to do with how they're viewing God looking at them.
No.
It's more to do with the outward appearance towards everybody else in the organisation. I'm dying for the cause. You know, it's yes.
So what we're trying to say is that anybody that is a witness still, that's watching this or will be watching this in the future, please look and do your research on the blood issue. There is much research that's been done, some very good research out there that you can now look at to show quite clearly that when it comes to medical treatments, you are already and have been given the best wishes by the society to take blood in all its forms. Call it fractions as you will, but those fractions all add up to 100% blood volume if you look at all of the treatments that are now available. They're out there. And realise that this whole issue about abstaining from blood is no longer an issue because you're already having it. And it's just about the amount of blood volume that you can now take, smaller amounts or larger amounts. This is a life-changing event here, and it's very serious. But what we would say is please just do your research. There is much out there. Once you start to see it for what it is, then your life suddenly takes on a very different hold on this issue. We really do. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and the twins.
And for all of those other families that are out there that are...
And those that are about to die.
That are in the position right now where you've got family members in the hospital waiting to decide whether to have a blood transfusion and to see what else they can offer if you refuse one. Have the blood. Please have the blood. You will eventually realise when you start to wake up that you are allowed it and the organisation know it, but they will never tell you because it will ruin them. That is one thing they can never change. They cannot come out rightly and go and say we're removing it because it's actually we got it wrong. They won't do it because of the way they will look and the members they will lose because of it. Because you are a member. You are a member of that organisation. You were born. You made a decision, you were dedicated to that organisation, not to God, but to the organisation. And if you remain loyal by not having blood, the only people you're pleasing is them. In fact, you're not even pleasing them. They won't care whether you have blood or not. They don't look at you and go, we care about you. No. They're looking at their numbers and the control they want to keep with keeping those numbers under control and you in it and be in control with every action you do and everything you say and future decisions you make from that point onwards, because they've got you where they want you.
There is an individual that emailed me a while back from his hospital bed who was suffering from a very severe kidney failure at the time, needed a transplant, but at the same time there were other complications and he needed a blood transfusion. He had a son at home. I don't know where his wife was. We seem to have lost contact since. But I know for a fact that when he emailed me, he said, I'm under pressure by the authorities to have the treatment. I want it, but my mother is saying no. And he's a father with this young baby. What do you think I should do? I sent him a very short email back telling him to live. Live for your son. That's a loving thing to do. And if there's anything to do with Christianity here, this is about love and forgiveness. This is about the empowerment of keeping your family together. And Jesus does not want you to sacrifice yourself. He wants you to live. He wants mercy. These are the things that are important in the Gospels. So on that alone, I think we just want to finish up there. And our hearts go out to all those that are affected by this. Please, there is a lot of support. Just reach out. There's lots of us out there that are willing to give more information. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye.